Hi everyone, I'm Mindy Thomas and this is Career Chat. We air every Monday at 11:30 a.m. and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. You know, software runs the world. From our iPhones to our coffee makers to our cars, software is everywhere, and behind the software, we have to have people that write the code. With that said, there is an untapped market out there, and I am really privileged today to introduce you to my next guest, Lossie Freeman, the Director of Corporate Partnerships of Zipcode Wilmington, a non-profit boot camp that trains individuals in just 12 weeks to land positions in technology. Lossie, welcome to Career Chat.
Thank you, Mindy. Good morning.
Good morning. Lossie, you have had, besides working this wonderful job at Zipcode Wilmington, I just have to mention, your career has been illustrious, from working at a university, or actually attending a university abroad in Shanghai, to working at the consulate, to going to Wall Street, then working as a consultant for JP Morgan, then a special assistant to the mayor of Wilmington, where you built an employment infrastructure for individuals and trying to get unemployed people back to work. And now, as the Director of Corporate Partnerships for Zipcode Wilmington, you have a very big mission in mind. Help us to understand what you do, and what does Zipcode do for the folks out there that are looking to re-career.
Right. Thank you so much for having me on and allowing the opportunity to talk about this wonderful organization. So Zipcode Wilmington is one of less than a dozen nonprofit coding boot camps in the United States. We were founded in 2015 by 3 local prominent businessmen who saw this need. They saw that we are primarily a banking city, and that jobs really move where the people are, where the talented people are, and that we had a shortage of tech talent. So this was really an experiment. And over the past 5 years since we were created, we have trained over 400 software developers, most of whom have gotten employment within the city limits. About 75% remained in the area with their new jobs. So we're really proud. Our mantra is that talent is distributed evenly, opportunity is not. So the entire purpose of Zipcode Wilmington was to create opportunities for everybody who has an interest, in a place where they can come and learn, get reskilled, upskilled, and enter a brand new profession that's in really high demand.
It's pretty amazing that you can do that in 12 weeks, Lossie. I know that your job as Director of Corporate Partnerships is really to make those connections so that the graduates actually land jobs when they're finished that certificate program.
Yes.
What else
That's
do you...
a really unique feature about Zipcode Wilmington, is that we're not just an educational training organization, but we actually help our students with the job placement. In fact, we were designed with that in mind. So we started with the partnerships. So it was reverse engineered, where we went to the business and said, what is it that you need? What would you hire? So that we could get a really core base curriculum in the 12 weeks that our students could hit the ground running once they graduated. So the model is that students pay a small amount up front for the education. When they place with a corporate partner, the corporate partner then reimburses the remainder of the tuition.
That's amazing that the corporate partner that they now have a job with actually pays back the money for their education. So let's talk about dollars and cents for our audience. What is the fee to attend the 12-week program? What does the admissions process look like? And how competitive is your program?
So it is quite competitive to get in. We typically receive about 450 applications for 25 to 35 spots. We run 3 cohorts a year with those 25 to 35 individuals. Okay. And they go through a rigorous process. If you go online at zipcodewilmington.com, You will find information and material that you can study and prepare for the entrance process. We want to make sure that people have a real aptitude for coding and a real interest that's genuine, that this is not a fleeting idea. This is a real commitment. It requires total dedication for the 3 months that people are in this program. We encourage people to not have part-time jobs. It's a full-time program, and it is intense. Weekends, nights, you're working with a team to deliver a product at the end. There's a capstone project. So we really need people to be focused on it. We do group interviews where we look for behavior. We want to make sure that we're recruiting team players. So we do some really interesting stuff. Our director of education, Dan Stab, does a Lego exercise where the students it's almost like the telephone game and you have to build something out of Lego. So we're looking for all aspects of employability, not just that aptitude. You asked the price of our program. For the last 5 years, the cost of our program has been $3,000 to the student and $12,000 reimbursed by the corporate partner when they're hired. That makes Zipcode whole at $15,000 per person. We are a self-sustaining nonprofit. So when we recoup those tuition fees, it covers the cost of us providing this wonderful service. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we've had to adjust our percentage of who pays what. So now the students pay $6,000 up front and the corporate partner pays $6,000 on the back end, just for us to be able to meet our expenses and not have to wait 3 months to get the money that we need to maintain our operations.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful opportunity for people that are looking to transition from their careers. And many, many Americans, some industries are just flat out, they're done. Can you give us some idea about the quality and the quantity? Well, maybe just give us an idea about the type of people that have transitioned. I mean, like, what kind of folks have transitioned into this program? All walks of life, I assume.
Really surprised, Mindy. It's a fabulous story. When many people think about training and education, they think about younger people, the 18 to 24-year-olds.
Right.
Surprisingly, our average age is 30. So we get people who have retired from earlier professions, or people who've done a lot of different jobs and kind of floated through different things and not settled on anything. A lot of times we get people who had a love for IT earlier in life, and then life got in the way. Things came up, they had to take other jobs. Lots of people who had some college credits who may have had to drop out for life reasons, and they find Zipcode is a wonderful place to get started again because of that short time period and because of the low cost of entry. So we've had a lot of people. We've had people who have been women like me who stayed home after having children. We have a lot of people like that who are looking to re-enter the workforce and want to brush up on skills or completely change careers. We have a lot of people who actually have an IT background, interestingly, who didn't have inroads at a particular company. Because we set up what we call Power Interview Week and we introduce them to our hiring partners, it kind of increases their likelihood of landing a job. So that's kind of the value in some of the people. We've had some really wonderful, amazing stories. We've had people come to Zipcode. One of our instructors actually aged out of foster care, was a social worker, had a love for IT, is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Came through Zipcode, got a job at JP Morgan, worked for a while, and then wanted to come back and give something back for all that he thought that he'd gotten out of Zipcode. And now he's one of our best instructors.
Oh my goodness, that is a great.
We've had Amazon package delivery folks, we've had postal workers, we've had teachers, it's for anybody.
What's the most unusual background that's come through Zipcode Wilmington?
I just started in August, but I'd say one of the most unusual and a story that really touches my heart is a student that we had who lived in Puerto Rico. So after Hurricane Maria, while she was in Puerto Rico, she was the sole breadwinner for her family after the hurricane. And she was biking 15 miles to work as a cashier at Kmart. She heard about our program, I think, through a cousin who lived in the area and knew about it. And her first night away from home was her final interview for Zipcode Wilmington. She came here, she succeeded, she's just amazingly brilliant. completed our program, and now works as the software developer, making more money than anybody in our family's ever made.
That's amazing.
These are the stories that touch my heart and make me really proud to work at Zipcode.
That's a truly inspiring story. Now, I'd like to bring up a slide that you shot me last week on the demand. Let's look at exactly what's going on here for the demand in software development. Can you walk us through this graph for our audience?
Absolutely. So this slide is a little bit dated, as we're already in 2020. This slide came out a few years ago and really is sort of the impetus for what you were seeing behind the development and creation of Zipcode Wilmington. There are many, many, many more technology jobs than there are computer science and software development graduates to fill those jobs. And that number represents about 500 billion in income, in wages that could be earned if we had the talent trained to be able to fill these jobs. So that graph really shows you the shortage and that it's growing. That's an upward trend. So while we're in 2020 now, I think we fully can predict that chart to continue to increase. And if you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which we're really driven by that, we're looking at the demand for those jobs. Data engineering is also on that list, and that's a brand new training program that we just launched in February and graduated our most recent and inaugural cohort for data engineering.
So let's talk about the two programs that you target with your students. You got data engineering, right? And what's the second one?
Java, software developer, but
Okay.
it's really object-oriented development with a Java lens. So our developers really will learn many, many languages throughout their career. This is really just a jump start for them to get started on their first coding language, which is Java, JavaScript, TypeScript. But as we know, software developers are have to be hardwired for change. So this is the beginning of a lifelong career of learning new languages. We have people, some of our partners hire for more than Java. So while we're teaching Java, they may hire for .NET. They may hire for COBOL, which is sort of an antiquated, but there are lots of different languages. This is just, it's really the skill that we're teaching, as our executive director, Disa Burton, likes to say, is the ability to learn and unlearn and relearn. And this cycle goes on and on. So that's really what we're building.
Well, it's interesting, you know, two major programs, two lanes. The demand is just crazy. I can't believe what you showed me on that chart. And it looks like there's not enough, for once we can say, not enough graduates to fill those jobs because the job opportunities are endless. When we have to take a short break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the aptitude, the ideal candidate, and what is required for admission into the Zipcode Wilmington. In just a minute, please stay with us.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There you go, Richard. Oh, is that too hard for you?
No. Is it too hard for you?
Woo, we're playing catch now. Oh, shit.
What do I want to be when I grow up? Maybe a musician? A veterinarian? Maybe an equestrian? A mommy? Well, why not be all these things and more, consider joining me, Dr. V, with friends and colleagues as we explore a wide range of topics together. V is for variety, here on RVN TV.
Number 7. Number 8.
9 regular. Oh, wait. 13 giant. The usual?
Of course. Number 1.
Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Today,
If you are just joining us, I have a very special guest with me today, Lossie Freeman, who is the Director of Corporate Partnerships coming out of Zipcode Wilmington. Lossie, we are back at Career Chat. Let's talk about the software running the world. You just mentioned, look at Amazon, look at Zoom. Let's talk about that. What do you think about all those companies just really just exploding right now?
Yeah, we found it really interesting. While there's definitely a softening in the market, and we know there are 40 million people who are currently unemployed due to this just wildly unprecedented pandemic that we've not experienced before in the past, that you look at many of the winners, they happen to be technology firms.
Yes.
We're talking about Zoom, talking about Amazon, even some of the healthcare companies that use a lot of software. The data engineering, think about all of the data that's going behind trying to get a hold of the pandemic and figure out how many people are infected, or how many, all of those numbers are being crunched probably by a data engineer somewhere. So I still think that there is going to be a strong demand for software developers, particularly in those environments as people are working from home. Even restaurants are using software now to get deliveries made and inventory. Your grocery store now, how many of you are using Instacart?
Right.
Software developers design all of that infrastructure.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't even know that. It's interesting, you really need to have an aptitude to enter a software development program. So let's talk about what your ideal candidate looks like. Now, I know they come from all walks of life, but what kind of natural skill do they need to become a software developer?
I think we've really tried to reduce those barriers to saying that you have to have a formal background or education or already know how to code. You really don't. You really have to have an inquisitive nature. You have to have intellectual curiosity and a high degree of intelligence, ability to reason and work through problem solving. And again, as we mentioned, none of that is any good if you don't have the people skills and the ability to work with a team. But it's really about an interest and the meticulous nature of wanting to get into the detail of things. It's a very detail-oriented role. So we're really just looking for people with an interest. We provide a lot of the material online. So if someone who is interested could go to our website, look through the material, go through the exercises and the training, and then they take an assessment. A lot of people don't pass the assessment on the first go round.
Yes.
You can try again. We have lots of people who have applied for Zipcode, didn't get accepted the first time, tried again and made it in. So it's persistence and practice. It's definitely not something that's easy. For some people, it comes a little bit easier than others, but it is something that you can learn. I predict that we're all going to have to learn how to develop software at some level in my lifetime. I think it will be the new second language that's required. If we look at education, only 5% of US students take any type of software development to graduate high school. In China, 100% of all students in their K through 12 equivalent education learn to code.
Are you serious? Did not know that.
We've got some catching up to do. We've really got some inroads to make.
Oh my goodness.
As you mentioned earlier, to bridge that gap, the skills gap, we're going to need software developers.
Well, I know you went abroad and did university training over in Shanghai, correct?
I did.
What do you think was the biggest takeaway from that?
I think there are people all over the world that are working very, very hard. And that when I tell my son, I have an 11-year-old son, and I say that your competition is not the kids in your classroom. They're not the kids in your school. They're not even the kids in your city or state. Competition is global. It is competition worldwide. And as a global citizen, I'd love for more Americans to really become aware of that and think on a broader scale. And I think globalization has brought that about in a very real way.
You also worked at the U.S. consulate overseas.
I did. I briefly worked at the U.S. consulate in the economic political section. And Guangzhou is the area where a lot of the exports come. It's where most of the economic industry happens in China. At least it was when I was there several years ago. So it's been a very interesting journey. I credit you, Mindy. You were very, very helpful for me in relaunching my career. I took some time out to stay home with my son when he was born. And I can tell you, re-entering the career world and world of business was not easy. You were instrumental in that, and I'm eternally grateful to you.
Oh my goodness, Lossie, I've been watching you grow since then, and thank you for your kind compliment. I have always loved that you have an intense need to learn, and you are a global citizen, and you have a love of diversity and inclusion. And I love right now that you are working at Zipcode Wilmington and putting into action your desire to help others. And that's what you do as the Director of Corporate Partnerships. Now, admission to the school, let's get back to that, because my understanding is you need a high school diploma or a GED. Will you take a GED?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. High school is the only prerequisite required. If you can pass the assessments, and I'll tell you, some of our most brilliant candidates have had just a high school diploma. We really believe, truly and deeply believe, given an opportunity, anybody can shine. It doesn't matter where you were born or what your access has been in the past. We're here to break down those barriers and provide opportunity for any and everybody who's interested in this. That's what I love about it. That's what really touches my heart, and what makes us so special are the stories. So, people may want to compare us to a 4-year degree or other educational programs where students can pay $15,000 to do training. There's so many people that can't afford to do that. And those people are now excluded from industries where they can be incredible assets. So we're really proud to break down those barriers and allow anybody who's interested a chance to have a great opportunity. The average salary of people when they enter Zipcode Wilmington.
What?
Oh, were you going to?
Yeah, we were going to go there. Go ahead.
$28,000. By the time they leave and they're employed after Zipcode, the average goes up to $74,000 a year.
So your average salary of incoming student is $28,000 a year, and it can go up to $80,000?
That's right, or more.
Our
average is about $74,000 after they completed Zipcode program. That's life-changing.
Impressive. I am just like, wow. Now listen, I know that COVID had an impact on the school. We need to talk about that. But you guys were way ahead of the curve. You had already done online and moved everything to online, yes?
Well, by the time the governor issued the shutdown order, we were ready to go. Our executive director, Disa Burton, was on it. She's former Navy.
Oh, yeah.
And so she prepared this just was second nature to her. She was already preparing for online, the eventuality of online. Now, we pride our program on being an in-person program. We'd never done online prior to COVID, but we very quickly pivoted to an online curriculum. And now with our latest cohort that's entering, we're doing a hybrid model where there is some in classroom because we believe in that face-to-face, the teamwork, the ability to interact for problem solving is really important. Someone just leaning over your shoulder and looking at your code and going, oh, you need to change this or that. And that's super important. But in this new environment, it's not possible to do it 100%. So we definitely were ahead of the curve. And I think that our graduates are really getting a skill that's going to be useful. Many of them are interviewing now and entering new jobs solely online, solely virtual.
So they're doing the Zoom interview, they're getting hired, right, through the interview, and probably never showing up at the brick and mortar.
Absolutely. So do our students have an advantage with that? Absolutely.
Well, because you do the resumes, you do Zoom interviewing,
yes.
You do all kinds of job skills and interviewing to help them, because not everyone knows how to navigate an interview. I mean, you could be as good as gold and get in front of someone and then just like blank, and space out. So they have to get used to that. And I know that your school is driven towards helping students land the job. So they do whatever it takes. Not many schools around like that. So what is the biggest distinction? Because there's a lot of boot camps. I researched them years ago with my daughter from San Francisco to New York. What is the major distinctions of Zipcode Wilmington if I'm out here researching schools right now for software development?
Thank you for that question. We are markedly different from many of the other boot camps in that we judge ourselves on our outcomes. So when you go to our website at zipcodewilmington.com, you will find our outcomes report, an audited outcomes report. What we lead with is the graduation rate and the time to employment, the salary of before you enter and after you enter. And everything that we do is geared towards the success of our students. And I think being a nonprofit really puts us in a different category that we don't see our competition as other boot camps. We are one of a handful of nonprofit coding boot camps here for our students and here for our corporate partners. Because we were designed with a corporate partner in mind, because we have a board with corporate partners who are part of that, it's a steering committee where they provide input and help to direct the curriculum, we are always on target with what they're looking for. And I think that's a distinction, that we've got a direct pipeline to what hiring managers want. We don't talk enough about it, but we really, in addition to providing the technology training, we provide countless hours of professional development. Many of our folks are coming in, this may be their very first professional corporate job.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time on interviews, on networking events. We have guest speakers that come in twice a week. So that's 6 hours a week that they have someone who is in the business, a software developer, a hiring manager, or someone related to that field to talk to them about their job. They can ask questions and engage. And I think that interaction is invaluable. At 5:30, I'll say prior to COVID, Zipcode is a little bit like a cult, that it's a family, that people who go through it feel so intensely connected to this experience that they're really wanting to give back. So around 5:30, people just stream into our school to help other students with their projects, to tutor, to talk to them, to come in and give presentations about their company and how they found it. So that is one of the most beautiful things about our program. Every student interviews with each and every person on our professional team before they leave Zipcode. We work with them on resumes. We have a specialist who comes in and helps them do resume writing so that they're definitely prepared. Their 30-second commercial is ready to go.
Well, it's just an outstanding program, and I always get goosebumps talking about it because I come from that placement background and missions background. I just want to thank you so much for making time for us today, Lossie. So if anyone is interested in the program, they simply go to zipcodewilmington.com?
That's correct.
Well, thank you again, Lossie. It was a real honor to interview you today. To my viewing audience, thanks for joining us. Remember that your career is your business, and we need to run it like we're a CEO. If you have any questions about the program, please contact me at thomascareerconsulting.com. Have yourself a good, a safe, and happy week, and I will see you here next week.
Thank you.